Hey there, friends. This is Dr. G, the Keto ND, and I am using my streaming here, and I'm looking to see if we're going to work. I've used this in the past, and often I've had to delete the videos because it's cut out so much. And so I'm looking, and it looks like we're good. So I decided to do a live stream because it's just going to take me forever to try to put together more of a recorded and edited video. So for better or worse, this is what you're going to get. So hello there from my remote office in the treehouse. And so what I wanted to cover today is related to a couple of posts actually that I've put up lately on Facebook regarding cancer. So I've long wanted to delve into cancer and discussions and my blog posts and also in videos because this is an area of great concern, of course. In fact, the reason that I'm sitting here talking about it and talking about health, doing a lot of what I do with my day job is related to cancer. And so just as a quick background, I did post a video probably over a year ago where I was talking about my father, and I believe that was the only time that I brought that up. So if you haven't watched that video, I'll try to find it and link it in the comments below or in the description for this video. And just as a kind of a quick summary, back in 1999, actually, my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. At the time, they gave it stage 4, which is advanced, and it is a pretty much lethal cancer. Not changed much as far as I know today. Depending on the staging, it's often very poor outcome. And so back then, I was working in the high-tech field and just kind of going through life as what was I, in my early 30s, barely, and that just shook my world. So after a year of him dealing with that, he did pass away. There's a lot of stories through that, and sometime I'll probably talk more about that. But it actually was as successful, you can, successful is the wrong word. It was a blessed year for us as family and those that were able to kind of come around him. He had some very good quality of life, and a lot of my first introduction to alternative medicine came as a result of that, as well as just an awareness about our lives as being limited and what we have been given as a blessing and what we do with our lives. So a lot of growth and a lot of course, loss and pain that came through that. My father was very involved father, devoted husband, and have 7 siblings. He was very active in his church, and so he left a very large void, and it inspired me to leave high tech and go into the study of medicine. And so, long story short, up to the future now, to the current time now, is that while studying in school, I did quite a bit of focus in the cancer area, but there's a lot of controversy and legalities around cancer in our country and elsewhere. In a lot of the Western medicine model is there's actual laws put in place around how providers can help and treat cancer. And so what it has done is it's made it very difficult for a lot of supportive therapists and doctors who want to do things in a more holistic way to come along and help patients. And, we have to balance that with what the law has stated. Do I agree with it? Not really. There's a lot of controversial topics, and I would put this one in the same level with some of the vaccine controversies that are going on, in that you can almost not have any open discussion and differing opinions with the mainstream without getting, ridiculed, targeted, and sort of dismissed. And so logic and good science and a good heartfelt discussion around these topics often get, pretty much pushed out of the mainstream into the common lines of discussion and human interaction. So amongst all this, when it comes to cancer, we have those who we love who are dealing with cancer. And I'm sure there's nobody watching this video who hasn't been touched in some way, either directly with cancer themselves or in a family member, either going through the treatments or having lost a loved one to cancer of some sort. So in this month, of course, if you're watching this later, this right now is Breast Awareness Month, in breast cancer awareness. And so there's a lot of posts that have come up, of course, and some very helpful, and it's good to raise awareness, and I'm not against that. But two things that have come up, and I'll just kind of summarize them, and I don't want to keep this video going too long, but number one, when it comes to cancer in general, let me just say that it is a very diverse topic, and so it doesn't really help anyone to blanket statement, saying, oh, there's a cure if you just do these, natural remedies and we could cure all the cancers and all that. And then on the other side, oh, well, the only acceptable ways of treating it is through surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy. And you've got these two sort of poles. And what I'd like to do, though, number one, is just to say that cancers are very diverse as we are as individuals. We each have individual fingerprints. We have individual genetics that come together, and cancer comes about through a number of portals into human beings. And so it's a very complex topic, but there are some very simple principles and some common sense thinking on the topic that I think are good to keep in mind. Number one, and this is a hard topic, this is one of the things that got me kind of disillusioned about medicine, a few months into practicing, is how hard it is to get people to think preventatively and to think about their personal responsibility for their health. There are just people who are going to take that and run with that. There are people who are just going to ignore that all the way to the grave. And so I'm not going to go out and try to convince anybody who's not going to change, and change is hard. But at the end of the day, we're all individually responsible for our choices and the areas of spheres of influence that we have amongst others and ourselves. And if we take a passive attitude, if we allow the culture around us to dictate our path and the voices from our past and what we've been told, we often are led down a road that doesn't lead to much success. And so, think of it, in my mind, I go to the, sort of a science look at this in terms of physics and the laws of thermodynamics, and we think about how in the universe we often see everything going from a state of order to a state of disorder. And that's just a common phenomenon. If you leave your yard unattended for a couple of years and come back, it'll be pretty disordered. This happens to our bodies. This happens to our homes. They need to be cleaned regularly. Your laundry just doesn't do itself. It doesn't fold itself. And so when it comes to health, it has to be proactive, or we're moving to less health. Now, our bodies are built with and designed with an amazing self-healing mechanism. And so we can actually counter entropy, or this law that says that all things move towards disorder from order. So you look at a newborn, and we age and then we die. In a sense, our bodies are becoming more disordered. We sort of reach our growth peak and then we start to decline. Within that span, though, we can either have a lifestyle and surround ourselves with an environment that promotes health, or goes the other way. And we're all living within a balance. We're all experiencing stress. We get hurt. We experience loss and grief. And we're all prone to our biological instincts that might drive us to make unhealthy choices. And when it comes to cancer, I guess, so what I'm getting around to is this idea of prevention is the utmost importance. There are some promising and important things about dealing with cancer once it's presented itself. But the best cancer treatment is prevention. And and I need to remind myself of this, but when my dad got cancer, it just changed my whole perspective, and it continues to drive what I want to do to better myself and my own health. And I would just ask you, those who are watching this, to consider, making a difference. It does matter. It's, you're not going to extend your life by decades. That's typically not the case, but it's quality of life, and that's what you offer to individuals, and I can just give you my personal story in some summaries here. Is that I am now over 50, and I'm not going to say I'm as healthy as I was in my 20s, but I am in some ways in terms of what I know and how I apply it. The older I get, the more important it is. And it's not work, it is effort, but it's inspired and it's enjoyable when you look at what you can do and the power you do have. And so unfortunately, it comes down to having to say that there are certain actions and certain things we do to our bodies that are going to cause poor health. So, not enough sleep, not drinking fresh water, too much fluid intake of things that are not good, cocktails of, these sports drinks with too much sugar, caffeine, and alcohol. And it's really about, it's none of those things by themselves. It's how much, we've turned it into our society now where the celebrations and the party-like behavior is every day, every night, instead of that once in a while. And so, the sugar, don't get me started, but we've long known that cancer is a disease of a dysfunctional environment, whether it's our minds, the environment that we think of, and the environment that we surround ourselves. So we know that excessive alcohol, a weakened immune system, excessive amounts of processed foods and sugars, the more exposure to toxins and the more frequently we get some of these infections, it increases the risk for cancer. And so it's increasingly clear that genetics alone don't predestine us for a life of disease and inevitable cancer. These statistics on cancer are very discouraging. And in breast cancer, and unfortunately, the message is not empowering people. It's constantly seeking fundraising to go towards toxic and highly invasive therapies way down the line, and endless research. And we need to start holding accountable where this money is going. And I would just say, start with yourself and what you're doing and those around you, and how are you feeding your family, what are you thinking about, what are you inspiring yourself with, instead of the endless the media messages. And unfortunately, all the information that we have coming at us is often very negative. And there is no doubt that cancer is associated with not just negative environment in terms of toxins and things, but also the mind. And so if we're constantly filling ourselves with, just degrading shows that do not show the best in humanity, looking at the news that focuses on all the negativity and pointing the finger at everybody instead of inspiring us to do something about it, it's toxic emotions. And in my dad, I could go into some specifics. As a wonderful, loving man he was, like all of us, he struggled more with some of the things around him that he saw that he didn't have control over. And we have to find ways to disengage from taking things too personally and holding on to those things internally. And our spiritual life is absolutely essential for our personal emotional well-being. And not just to some, these methodologies that are just feel good. And, it's got to be tangible and real, and you have to start living this out in your relationships with people. But so anyway, back on cancer and with breast cancer, I just want to say and point out one study, an article that was posted about, one is the Susan Komen Foundation, about all the controversy about fundraising. I'll link that down below as well. And unfortunately, I'm not surprised. I was seeing this back, 20 years ago with the cancer associations and the cancer fundraising activities. When you look at where that money's going and to what percentage is simply used to fund the nonprofit and the administrative costs, and what is the actual impact, for individuals, is very disheartening. And then the other thing was about dairy. There was a post that was talking about how dairy consumption is associated with increased risk of cancer. And the organization that touts itself as being a sort of medical association literally is not made up of medical professionals, and instead is a very anti-animal product organization. And so the post is very skewed and it's very misleading. There is no evidence. There is evidence on both sides, and this is the problem with research: is you can cite whatever research you want, and if it supports your opinion. But me reviewing it, and again, this is just my opinion, yes, there's certain dairy that's not good for you in many ways, and it probably does promote cancer, but just to throw that all out and say that, oh, all dairy foods and all animal products are evil, they're destroying the planet and our bodies, it's just not good science, and it doesn't pan out. There are many aspects of animal foods that can be used both humanely and as keeping us as good stewards of our planet, and also very nourishing, and that includes dairy foods. Some foods aren't compatible with certain individuals, but there's always, we focus on these one areas and then we ignore others, like, just our toxic thoughts, and of course the sugar. Many dairy foods are high in sugar. That's not good. And the other area, and I think I had posted this with breast health, is a very overlooked issue surrounding breast health is actually bras. Okay, and I'm not the leading expert on this by no means. Maybe I'll have one of my colleagues come on, and I can talk with one of my female naturopathic colleagues. But I have many women in my life, and it kind of makes sense that the use of certain types of bras and support actually limits breast health. And so this is not insignificant. And it's just important to be aware of it. That doesn't mean, oh, what do we do? Throw out all our bras? Well, maybe in some cases, but it's the type, how often you're wearing it, and lymphatics need to be taken into account. This is the circulation of the body that goes back to get toxins out of the body. But, when you're wearing a bra all day, it is cutting off the lymphatic circulation of the breast. There's been associations with the types of deodorants and beauty products that women are using, and the xenoestrogens, or the chemicals that have estrogenic effects. These are not insignificant either. And so it's little things. It's things that we can change without really much effort and just being aware of it. So don't sleep with your bra on. I guess I would say that one. The wire under bras, so the ones that are often a little, is the tight and very, trying to really support. If you're you need it for athletic support, obviously, but it's just making changes and giving your body the ability to, naturally detoxify the lymphatics. And there are some techniques for helping to, again, get lymphatics moving in the body as well. There are many other aspects, also excess weight gain by far. The obesity and overweight problem that's in our culture is epidemic, and it's driving increased cancer rates, among other things. And this leads me to the third thing around cancer that is extremely exciting and extremely hopeful. And the message needs to get out there that a low carbohydrate and getting sugar under control is one of the best things that we can do for cancer. It's unfortunate that our mainstream cancer treatments do very little about dietary factors. That's a travesty. There's sort of lip service around it, but in many cases, and even in childhood cancers and recommendations in these hospitals and treatment centers where kids and adults, they're told to eat whatever they want. And I've even reviewed the recipes that these are on these websites for cancer support, and it's obscene. It's obscene. A heavily processed, high sugar diet is going to fuel so many aspects of driving the cancer pathogenesis. And we now know, and thankfully for some good research that is going against the traditional research, that evidence and everything kept pointing for, let's find a cure using genetic research. Well, we now know that yes, there's genetic changes that cause cancer, but the top cause actually has to do more with an injured metabolic system that's going on within the cells of the body. It's being shown that the mitochondria damage and the changes that happen with glucose metabolism, so this is the generation of energy within the body, the primary breakdown in that is what is probably one of the more top causes that's initiating the cancer. And what is something we all have power over to quickly address that? So both preventatively and supporting, if you have the unfortunate situation where you're dealing with cancer, I cannot emphasize enough that you immediately embark on a ketogenic diet. We'll call it whatever we want, but a low carbohydrate diet that's healthfully implemented is the best thing you can do. You don't need to wait for tons of double-blind placebo-controlled studies or your oncologist telling you whatever. Now, am I saying don't do any other treatments? Of course not. So that's not what I'm saying, of course. But you could definitely halt progression in some cases if you do this. You could prevent, there's hidden cancers that might be on the brink. And now's the time to begin to experience the effects, the many health effects, benefits of doing this. So I'll talk more about that and get into it. The other area, and I've gone long, so I'm not going to go into it, but one of the things that a high carbohydrate diet and sugar diet fuels is dysbiosis and the imbalanced microorganisms that are within and on our bodies. So dysbiosis, it's an imbalance within the microbiotic flora. These are the tiny organisms that inhabit all of our environment, and they are in our bodies. And they're supposed to be there within the digestive tract, for instance. We all know about probiotics. So dysbiosis is how a lot of factors throw off our natural flora. And it's now clear that that's one of the driving forces for a number of diseases, including cancer as well. And so again, the diet feeds that. Its studies are very exciting to show simple dietary changes, removing processed carbohydrates from the diet, increasing healthy sources of fibers, those essential fatty acids and good quality proteins, and the phytonutrients we get from real food actually shifts your flora into a beneficial state. And this flora, by the way, not only just drives disease, but it even imbalanced flora. These bacteria and other organisms actually take the bad foods we're eating and they convert them into inflammatory molecules, disease-promoting molecules, and they can take things like even fiber, which is supposed to be healthy, and convert it into sugar. And there's evidence that certain fungi actually invading the digestive tract into even the pancreas is associated with pancreatic cancer. So one cancer in particular where it's literally these microorganisms are a part of the induction of cancer. So I am going to, I think, kind of wind this down. So anyway, my heart goes out to you out there who are dealing with cancer. Please feel free to ask questions and comments. I'm going to try to be going through more details and things of how to begin to implement. Of course, look back at my other videos and the other good information online on the ketogenic diet. There are thankfully some researchers and treatment centers that are beginning to implement these, and I'm hoping to get more of that going here in our area. I am available to consult via phone or video call, and of course in town if you're in the Spokane area. So what I would highly recommend is also, if you haven't been getting some screening and some testing, is to consider some functional testing. And that's one of the areas that I do specialize in. And the comprehensive stool analyses, I would highly recommend for those who want to optimize their health and deal with this dysbiotic problem. Sometimes these issues are entrenched. We need to do some treatments to really rid our bodies of imbalances. The other area, of course, I work quite a bit on is hormones. And so I think two areas of important testing for adults, both for prevention and treatment, is looking at getting comprehensive hormone testing along with the stool analyses. And you don't have to have digestive problems to benefit from this. Many people are walking around with these imbalances that we can definitely correct. So thanks for watching. Please give a thumbs up if you appreciated this, and I always also thumbs down if you want to. Criticisms are taken, and questions, comments, like I said, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks.